The following presentation was recorded at the NDS Public Conference in September 2020.
Thank you. So I hope the audio is now better using that microphone because we have to pass it along anyway. So this presentation that we're seeing is a joint presentation that I'll start, like Martin already said, by giving you an overview on the NDS.Live that we release. So yeah, I'll give a short introduction overview and then the development team one by one. So as I said in the morning already, or what was it morning? No, it was early on. Let's put it like this. NDS.Live is not a database, it's a distributed map system. So that means NDS.Live is not in this one SQLite database or a couple of files of databases like NDS Classic is, but it can actually run everywhere, right? It can run in the car as a local map cache. It can run in any of the clouds you can imagine. So not only the two that we showed there, but these are the ones that are most commonly known. The OEM cloud, where you put some services there for that enrich everything, the whole ecosystem with fleet data. You have the map provider data in another cloud. You have something on the companion app. You have directly in some ECU reading live data or sending this out or whatever. So NDS.Live is actually a distributed system, and it's not this one database by copying this over, but it's mainly made out of, and this is what is next. So NDS.Live is actually made out of service interfaces. So it's not like a database or a file format specification any longer. We have started to define it on the interface level, on a service interface level. But for a lot of people, service interface sounds like, okay, it's a web service, right? Everyone says, okay, web service, but it doesn't have to be. Like I said, that kind of service can also run in car, and you can have multiple services run in car on multiple devices that communicate with each other. They don't have to use the same transport protocol or anything like that, like the ones that you're using for the cloud. So NDS.Live is not defining the transport protocol that you're using. It's basically on the level above saying, okay, this is the service interface. In addition to that, it defines the data layers that you can get over these, that you can retrieve via these service interfaces, and the data containers we put them into. And all of this in a smart way. This is what we're saying, right? Smart, why? Why do we say smart way? Because one very big concept of NDS.Live is the so-called smart layer concept. So the smart layer services, they allow distribution of map layers. So all data is basically really in layers and in flexible configuration, because this is what the smart layer does, right? You can layer whatever. So when we're looking at the picture here on the right side, right? So you see basically two containers that have different flexible configurations. So you have on the, what is that? The left side. On the left side in the red cloud, you have tile-based container that has these kind of 4 data layers you see there, right? Whereas in addition, going via the same or a similar interface, using the same concept of layering, you can have here in the blue cloud, you can have path-based data that is in a path container, and it's actually similar data layers or others, right? So you can flexibly scale this to the needs of your customer, or to the needs of the many facets your customer has in their car brands and their car models with different data needs and so on and so forth. So that can contain live, dynamic, and static data. That means the container and the smart layer concept is always the same. It's a matter of how dynamic the data is or how static. You put it all in the same thing. It's the one-stop shop for NDS data is the smart layer, right? And that can then be transported over the highly scalable delivery platforms that all of you guys have in place. So it's designed to really from ground up to support these delivery platforms that people have in place in the clouds. And they can, as I already said, like we had here in the example, they can be provided as data tiles, as paths, or as objects. So there are these 3 fundamental containers that we have. And a map does not have to be a map only. It's not really, it can be in today when we're looking in NDS, even when we're looking at our logo, it's tile based, right? We say everything is in tiles in NDS. But NDS.Live, you could even have a map, a distributed map, or that is only made up of paths along that you dynamically create in your backend or whatever and send out to the car and all of that. So we have to go away from this idea of everything has to be tile based and everything is tiled in NDS. This is not the case any longer, right? For sure, for a majority of data, when you need a lot of data, tiles are still a very convenient, well-defined container that we all know, that we all love, and this is why we're keeping it. But there are not a lot of other use cases where paths and objects like a parking garage or anything you would like to load later on, where tiling mechanism would just hurt you because there's no need to tile anything because the tiling actually has its benefits, but it also has its downsides. And this is why we have all of the three here in NDS.Live. So NDS.Live is out today, we said, right? We're releasing NDS.Live. But looking at the rollout, today we're releasing the ADAS and automated driving system focused NDS.Live. So this means all the map modules that NDS.Live has, they are currently focused on ADAS and automated driving systems. And for the IV, the infotainment and the navigation, we're gonna do this in next year. So this is already on the roadmap for starting now to roll this out, the whole ideas into more modules that accommodate the IV use cases. So let's look at the design principles of NDS.Live. I started this morning already to talk about modules and the independent versioning. So the NDS.Live design is highly modular. That was one of the driving forces behind the redesign of NDS.Live, was that NDS Classic is like this one big monolithic thing where people always complained, oh yeah, if they only change a couple of parts that I'm not interested in, and I have to always upgrade to everything, right? It was you upgrade to a newer version, you're getting all the changes, even changes that you probably don't need for your project, where you could save migration costs and all of that. So there was a long-going task force in the NDS technical committee to say, okay, how can we work around or overcome this flaws that we had in NDS Classic? And the decision was then to have a highly modular NDS.Live design. This highly modular NDS.Live design that reduces migration efforts, right? So between versions, you only upgrade to the next version of that particular module where your end customer really sees a benefit in it, right? Even if the standard has progressed on the other modules as well, you don't have to upgrade, because in your project, in your program, you don't need it at the moment. You can do that later, right? But you can focus on where you want to be first. And so this reduces the efforts of migration a lot. This also enables shorter update cycles of the specification itself. So it is a lot easier. So when we're looking at, for instance, on the just a small story about the development of NDS 254, for instance, in 254 there were a lot of change requests on the HD model, right? But there were also some change requests on the full text search. On the full text search change requests, we had already aligned very quickly on them. They were ready, but then it took half a year for the HD use cases to be discussed well, to finding a solution, and so on and so forth. So basically, the already agreed changes in the full text search, we could have released, if we only had a modular design like we have today, we could have released at the day when we said, okay, these 3 changes we want to do, we release them now, and development teams could have started on this already. But no, they had to wait another half a year until the HD guys were ready, and we had to make this one version release, right? So this will not be This will not be the case any longer with NDS.Live. In NDS.Live, we will say, okay, we're releasing this in a lot shorter cycles for each and every module independently, and hoping that this is really, or we're confident that this really increases also the migration speed and your overall speed, higher speed of development with NDS. In addition to that, it allows also a certain more specialized focus on this. So if some companies really want to only focus on certain aspects of the specification, they can really pick out their minimal set that they need out of these modules and say, okay, I'm just simply working on that. I don't care about the rest. I don't care about any kind of side effects that come in or anything. This is one big, I mean, it's probably a lot of you guys will still do the whole thing, but it allows people to really concentrate and focus on smaller areas. And it is more modular, means more future-proof. I mean, this is well known through the industry on all of the modularization efforts that you guys have done also in other parts. So you can simply update an old module with a new, or you can actually swap out an old module if it's so old. You can simply say, okay, let's make a completely new one. Even redesigns of parts of the specs are a lot easier because they don't have so many dependencies to the rest of the specification. Of course, that also brings a couple of challenges, right? These challenges are mainly what we're trying to tackle with tooling and compatibility rules that I presented earlier on with the package manager and all of that stuff. So because there will be now, hopefully not gazillions of versions around, but there will be a couple of modules with different versions. And you have to, and it's not like this that you can sit down and say, I'm using NDS 254, right? Which everyone knows it's a well-defined set of all the building blocks that are inside, but it will be more like this. Okay, I'm using version 1 of the lane module. I'll be using version 3 of the ADAS module, and so on, and these combinations together. So it will be, of course, flexibility also somehow increases the complexity, but we're trying to reduce that as much as we can. So for a lot of people that want to migrate, so for a lot of people that are not really maybe the new members, they start with a clean slate on NDS.Live. But for most of you guys, there will be migration, right? So the migration efforts from NDS.Live to from NDS Classic to NDS.Live, we support, first of all, as I said already, through the modular design, so you can do your migration step by step. It will still be possible, or is even foreseen, and you will see it later on in the slides of the partners of that first implementation, that you can simply say, okay, we're using an NDS Classic map 254 for this and this and that feature because that's our static fallback map maybe anyhow, but then we're attaching an NDS.Live service on top of it, and yeah, and it works together. Right, and so you can do the migration step by step. You don't have to have this one big bang effort. We have, so the NDS Association has decided also to publish reference implementations to reduce these development costs. About them earlier. So for instance, the smart layer server and the clients, they're there as reference implementations. Helping as much as we can in reusing of the code as well as the registry. The Live Lab map inspector and tools to be there early on. I mean, when we did NDS Classic in version 1.8 or version 1.6 in, I don't know, maybe the only one in the room who can remember is Boris over there. And there were no tools available, right? So you had to, everybody had to roll their own tools, and we said, okay, let's do that from the beginning. And in addition, having sample maps around so people can early on look into something and say, okay, this is how it really looks like in the data. And this should all boost your development efforts. And plus, which is here on the last line of the presentation, there's going to be an NDS.Live developer portal that brings all these resources together, right? There will be more tutorials, there will be more, it's really focused on the developer. So NDS.Live is not only saying, okay, we're modularizing things and we give you another 800, but we don't do now 20 times the 500 pages of spec, and here it is. But there will be a lot more the experience that you have also in when you're going to any developer portal on the internet, that you know, okay, we're going to have getting started, some sample maps you can download, some sample code snippets, and so on and so forth. This is right in the making at the moment, and it's going to be launching in 2021. So NDS.Live, as I said early on, we talked about the release, right, is ready now. And this is why actually a complete team of NDS partners has joined together in we will see that in some of the slides, in one of the next slides, in quite a short time to really jointly develop a working set of implementations for first SD and HD ADAS map. So bringing up services, bringing up clients, and we have done that. We kicked this off on July 7th, right? So that is just simply, let's say, what is that, two months ago, roughly. And the parties that committed to it said, okay, we have developers, we committed to them, but actually it was still a small team, right? It was not that these companies that you can see here on the screen said, okay, I throw my complete development power or my whole departments into it, right? It was more like, okay, because everyone is super busy always, so you have to see what can we, how much resources can we spare. So we had a small team of developers. It was supported by my team, the NDS development team, but we were using direct communication. Is what really something I really like personally to say, and it really worked well in such a kind of like thing, big. It was not like working group work, right? It was more like, okay, we had 2 times a week, we have daily stand-ups, fast feedback cycles, Slack page and stuff with that Slack channel up. And so direct communication was really key to success here, I would say. And so this is why we have we will see great results in a short time frame, right? Especially if we compare that to what, for instance, how long it would have been taken to do this with NDS Classic back then. So let's see what has the team done and what kind of services they are presenting right now. So you will see here. Let's start with from left to right with the first of all the service and then the clients for it. So Navinfo Mapscape, they have implemented an HD lane service where NNG will consume that service with their intelligent co-driver client. We have here providing an ADAS road service, which is consumed by Electrobit's ADAS's eHorizon client and JoyNext with a visualization client, sorry. So right now, here's the stage set for the people to report on their experiences, on what they have achieved in the last 2 months. And yeah, really looking forward to it. So I think the first turn is here with Boris Gumholz.
Thank you for watching. Visit our website for news on NDS at nds-association.org.